Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a webinar on peatland management in Laos. My name is Satya Budi Utama, or Tommy, of the People for Peat from WR Indonesia. On behalf of Coalitions of People for Peat, I'm delighted to welcome you this afternoon to the webinar on the Lao PDR peatland management. This webinar is organized within the framework of the Sustainable Use of Peatland and Haze Mitigation in ASEAN, or as we call it, the SUPA program. The SUPA is an ASEAN-wide initiative supported by the European Union designed to sustain ASEAN's endeavors in combating transboundary haze pollution and peatland fires. Welcome to participants representing the Laos peatland stakeholders and also general publics, and also a warm welcome to our colleagues from other peatland programs and initiatives across ASEAN. This afternoon, we'll have two speakers that will deliver their presentations on the current situations on the peatland management in Laos. Hopefully, we'll be able to conclude the sessions at 3 p.m. Before moving to the discussions, allow me to start with introducing the team, the coalition, and also the SUPA Component 2 program. So we are the Coalitions of People for Peat, comprising of three organizations. First, the WR Indonesia. It is an independent research organization dedicated to contributing to the socio-economic development in an inclusive and sustainable way. WR Indonesia work is focused on environment, economic opportunity, and human well-being. Next, we have IDS Foundation. IDS brings together government, private sector, CSOs, and financial institutions on the spirit of law and entrepreneurship and investment in working together to create solutions on global sustainability at scale. WR Indonesia and IDS Foundations are based in Jakarta, Indonesia. Next, we have Tropical Rainforest Conservation and Research Center, or the TRCRC. TRCRC strives to conserve tropical rainforest plant species and lead landscape-wide protections and reforestation projects. TRCRC is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We are going to discuss about the peat in Laos. So quick figures and facts about peat. Southeast Asia is a home to 56% of the world's tropical peatland, which amounts to approximately 24 million hectares. And the critical functions of peatlands, which are the largest natural terrestrial carbon store. Peatlands are also a critical ecosystem for biodiversity, and peatlands are important as it regulates water resources that prevent floods and droughts. Consequences of unsustainable peatland management take in the form of draining and burning peatlands, which turn it from a carbon store into a carbon emitter. As a result, transboundary haze in the ASEAN region is an annual occurrence that is contributing to the climate crisis. This is a quick figures about the peatland in the Southeast Asia. So in SUPA Component 2, we are working in the 8 ASEAN countries outside Singapore and Brunei Darussalam. Another quick facts about the peatland in Southeast Asia. In 2015, it cost Indonesia 16 billion from the peat fires. And 77% of carbon in tropical peatlands is stored in Southeast Asia, while 10% of global fossil fuel carbon emissions are coming from burned peatlands. And 42% of all soil carbon is stored in peat, which is only 3% of Earth's land area. There are several challenges in managing peatland in Southeast Asia. The prominent challenges are the lack of reliable data and information, limited options for sustainable business solutions, and limited access to funding in peatland areas, and also a lack of awareness and capacity in the sustainable peatland management. Those challenges are translated into three pillars in SUPA Component 2. The first pillars working on the research and data and information. So the activities in the first pillar focusing on identifying the gap on the knowledge and legal framework in the sustainable peatland management across the ASEAN countries. The second pillar is working on catalyzing investment towards contributing to the better livelihood aspect of the peatland management. So in pillar 2, we are trying to work to increase investment and improve livelihoods of the communities living in the peatland areas. Last but not least, we have the third pillar on the outreach and advocacy, working on establishing locally driven narratives and engagement with the communities towards establishing important messages regarding the sustainable peatland management. By non-state actors, we refer to quite wide stakeholders, which are the village level in communities, unions of farmers and smallholders, universities and research centers, civil society organizations, private sector or supply chain companies, and also banks and financial institutions. A bit of figures of peatlands in Laos. It has about Laos has about 30 wetland sites, and the largest wetlands areas found in Champasak, Savannakhet, and Vientiane capital. Peat was previously not known to occur in Laos, and the peat conservation effort in Laos is currently being funded by the European Union through the Peat project. It is implemented by the Department of Water Pollution Control. Let's watch a quick video about the importance of peat in the area. Moving on to our main agenda of the day, I'm inviting our colleagues, Mariam Ghani, to guide us into the discussion sessions. Mariam, over to you.
Thanks so much, Tommy. Sabayadi, everyone, and Kok Chai, or thank you for joining us today. My name, as you know, is Mariam Ghani, and I'm the Communications and Stakeholder Engagement Manager at the Tropical Rainforest Conservation and Research Center, as well as the Coalition of People for Peat. And I'm really honored to be with you today as the moderator for this webinar. And today we're focusing the spotlight on Laos, as we'll be joined by two accomplished presenters. First of all, I'd like to give thanks to our funders and supporters of this project, the European Union. And as my colleague Tommy mentioned, the format of today's webinar will be two presentations, followed by a question and answer session at the end. And throughout the webinar, if you have any questions for our presenters, please feel free to type it out in the chat box, and they'll be able to answer them during the session. So now I'd like to introduce our first presenter, which is Dr. Natalia Pervushina. And Dr. Natalia currently works as the Head of Office and Water and Wetlands Program Advisor with the IUCN in Laos. She's had extensive experience working with conservation NGOs such as WWF in both Central and Southeast Asia. And she joins us today to share a little bit about peatlands in the Bengkut Ngong Ramsar site. Now, Dr. Natalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Miriam. I'll start sharing my screen. Okay. And start presenting. Let me know, because the connection might be not too good today. So let me know when you.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So. Yeah, I will start. Yeah, I'll present. I'll briefly talk about the Bukidnon Ramsar wetland, and we'll move to peatlands in Bukidnon based on the UCN work in the past and also UCN research. And I would say Dr. Koi was heavily involved in the research that we did in the past before. So just some background for the Bukidnon wetland. Also, you might know that there are only 2 Ramsar wetlands in Laos, and Bukidnon is one of them. So Bukidnon was formally recognized as a Ramsar site in 2010. Consultations between communities and Ramsar Provincial Committee on the site led for the drafting of a 5-year management plan in 2017. And very recently, we developed the UCN helped the provincial committee, Ramsar Provincial Committee in Champasak, and supported by KfW project to develop a new management plan for 2019 up to 2023. In August 2018, first consultation started, and we completed the management plan in 2019. So talking about the Ramsar wetland, of course, it first should mention about the Ramsar designation criteria. What are the values? Why the wetland was designated? It's, as we discussed today, it's one of the only places in Laos where peatlands occur in largest peat area is the criteria number 1. It supports vulnerable and endangered species, for example, such as Asian box turtle, yellow-headed temple turtle. It's also spawning and nursery habitats for migratory whitefish during wet season, criteria 4, and it's a refuge for blackfish species during the dry season, criteria 8. So in 2018, IUCN also undertaken the Ramsar MET assessment to identify the threats. What are the threats based on the community consultations and based on the consultations with the local and national government. So the following threats have been identified. The hunting and over-harvesting of natural resources was identified as the greatest overall threat to the wetland. Then it was followed by invasive species, is a big threat to the wetland. Habitat degradation and encroachment was considered as a medium level threat. How I would say, I'll talk later about the peatland, and peatland actually fits into this habitat degradation and encroachment criteria as a threat. The other one is loss of cultural traditions, pollution and limited ecotourism and alternative livelihood opportunities. It was identified as a low. The other threats that were mentioned as potential threats, but they are not kind of recognized in terms of the results, but IUCN has mentioned it many times in the studies, and we're working with the provincial Ramsar committee and our other stakeholders. The Ramsar site itself, the design is very small, as you will see on the map, and there's no buffer zone. So unfortunately, also how it is designed in the Lao legislation, there's no concept of buffer zone for protected areas yet. Actually, they're just in Lao for protected areas, they're just considering including the concept of buffer zone, and for wetlands legislation, it's even far behind. And so there's no also concept of buffer zone for the wetland. So also for the local communities and for the local government, there's kind of this understanding that there's a core zone, and everything beyond the core zone anything can be done. So this concept of buffer zone is not there. The other one that we did, the climate change habitat vulnerability assessments that IUCN led, we identified peatlands to be the most vulnerable inhabitat in Bukidnon due to their rare and restricted status, degradation from the past extraction, and potential future climate risks from increased temperatures and fires. So currently, there are a few projects operating in Bukidnon Ramsar site. There's a KAVA project led by FAO, the Climate Adaptation Wetlands Area. The project will finish next year. There is MRWP project. Dr. Daumani is the one who is represented, and she's leading on this project from the provincial government. This is a KFW project, and the project will run until 2022. IUCN, this is a IUCN regional project supported by IKI, Mekong Wet project, but it's also about to finish very soon. So it mostly supported some communities, activities, awareness raising with the communities. There's as we talked today, this Mekong Peatlands projects on the, which was supposed to start in 2018 until 2022, supported by Jeff. And of course, SUPA, as we discussed before, and as also mentioned by DWR, that IUCN in collaboration with DWR, we submitted a proposal for SUPA Component 1 on restricted call for proposals. And if the concept, everything is approved, the work will start early in 2021 for 2 years. The work will support mainly Mekong Peatlands project. And I will talk more about this project in detail later also. So if we're moving to peatlands in Bukidnon, so this is you've seen this map already before. Peatlands areas in Champasak province. So the orange color is the peat. Yeah, as you can see, the location is mostly in the northern part of the Ramsar site. Another thing that we would see this, as I mentioned, this is the design of the Ramsar site. It's quite small, and it's also it has to be the borders have to be reconsidered. But this is how it is now according to the land use plans. So the majority of the peatlands is based in the north. So peatlands in Laos, in terms of we are talking about research in Bukidnon, were first mentioned by IUCN in 2012, but there was no description at the time in the IUCN documents. The Peat service that Dr. Daumani was mentioning in 2015 were held to assess the extent of and quality of the Bukidnon peatlands. The report was done by Dr. Koi. We did under the KFW MRWP project, the ecosystem survey with some description of the peats that were there. It was mainly description of the habitats and vegetation. It was also completed by Dr. Koi in 2019. Also, there was done a social impact assessment for sustainable management of peatlands ecosystem project in 2017 by IUCN. It was needed for launching the Mekong Peatland project, so there was some assessment of also the peatlands in Laos done within the framework of this social impact assessment. Moving further, so peatlands in Bukidnon, some physical characteristics. I will not go in too much detail because I think the audience, the participants have all received the short review of the analysis for the peatlands. So just shortly, the peats, as mentioned, they are based in upper catchment, the total area about 570 hectares, while 480 hectares in the northern part. The peats consist of they're mostly persistent, and some of them are in floating peat mats. The thickness of the peat layer in the Bukidnon area is heterogeneous. It varies from 70 to 160 centimeters. In some individual cases, it's over 300 meters, for example, in Pakistan. The amount of static water stored in the peat soil can be quite high and very useful for vegetation for the dry season, for example. Vegetation covering the peatlands are diverse. It's grasslands, swamp forests, shrublands, fern-dominated areas, and floating vegetated peatlands. So it's also, you can find it, and if needed, I can share these reports if you don't have them. So we can share this initial service that we have so far. Talking about threats to peatlands in Bukidnon. Before I was mentioning threats to under the Ramsar Met. So here it's based on our field work, based on our surveys. So there's a threats for peatlands for Bukidnon. So first of all, the forest clearance and forest land conversion for cassava plantations in and along the Bukidnon wetland. So I would say the cassava plantations is strongly dominating the landscape, and there's a lot of cassava plants and private companies collecting cassava. So it's a kind of alternative livelihood for the locals, but it does affect the wetland. The Bukidnon Ramsar site, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't have a buffer zone, and the buffer zone usually the land in the buffer zone is strongly deforested and used for cassava plantations or agriculture expansion. This leads to, in the result, the depletion of water resources in this land, in this area might lead to drying out of peats. So this is already partly happening, but not fully yet, so we can reverse it. Of course, there's also, Dr. Dalmany mentioned it earlier during the morning session, that there's a peat extraction of commercial companies or for fertilizers production, but it has now been stopped by the government of Laos, which is a good result. There's also sometimes private digging out of peat for fish ponds. For example, I think half a year ago, there was a local villagers, were digging out the peat for the fish pond. Near to the core-zone, but this was activity was reported to the provincial Ramsar committee, and the activity was stopped. So there still is, I think it's all, of course, in the result of the low awareness of the importance of peat for the local communities. The other thing that infrastructure, we're talking about potential threats, the infrastructure development. We have been, IUCN have been informed about the plans to establish Chinese iron mine adjacent to the Bukidnon core zone and Sipian National Park. It's more on the southern part, southeastern part of the Ramsar. And even though the environment impact assessment in Laos has been done, but there was no sort of mentioning of the environmental impact per se. There was no mention of the Ramsar. So if this project moves ahead, there might be potential changes in the groundwater resources. This will increase the risk of peatland fires and haze pollution. I think we, Dr. Dalmany and IUCN, we've been informed about this, and so we've been sent also a letter about the potential impacts to this to the provincial government. The other infrastructure development, this is also the construction of cassava processing plant in Pathampong district. As I mentioned earlier, the cassava plantations is a big issue for Bukidnon wetland. It's based also on our IUCN field mission observations on reports of our field managers. Because the construction of the processing plant will lead to more land conversion and habitat degradation if it's not managed properly and if it's not done in a proper, consultative and inclusive way. Some of the pictures also could be interesting to show. These are the pictures from the field missions in 2019. So, for example, on the right, there's a clearing of forest in the background along the peatland area for cassava crops. So, again, talking about the buffer zone. So there's there's no concept of buffer zone. So this it has to be explained to the local communities. Another one is the dike built for peatland mining at Tonnamnyat in Tomsak village in 2019. This is also our field staff on the mission. So you could see that the peatland is being digging out, and some the water bodies created. So these are some evidence of the threats and some peatlands destruction. Interestingly, this morning, preparing the presentation for you, we looked at Google Earth, and this is the main marsh in the Bukignon site. So you could see this is the state of the peatland site. So it's already been digged out quite severely in the main area. This, of course, is just based on the basic observations through the Google Earth, that you could see the lines that they dug out, the lines where they make the access to the peats to dig out the peat. The other one could be of interest of you for the also peatland mining in non-Poma Lue in Bukignon. So these are the open water bodies. These are the where the peats have been removed. So this is also kind of, you can see, I mean, just from the basic observations. Of course, proper GIS analysis needs to be done to assess the total impact and the level of degradation. But I mean, from the very previous basic assessment, you could already see what's happening with the wetland. So we're talking about the Bukignon management plan that was finalized in November last year. So it was a bottom-up participatory process where we heavily worked with the local communities and the provincial government. There is mentioning of the peatlands in the management plan, but mostly it focuses on the work under the Mekong Regional Peatlands Project. So there's a component on the management plan in the Bukignon management plan on the improving conservation and management of peatland areas. As I understand, this component will directly be implemented by the Mekong Peatland Project. So under this, it's undertake peatland service and awareness raising, draft agreement incorporating plan for wise use, regulations on activities and sustainable livelihood practices, and undertake zoning and demarcate priority areas, implement livelihood programs. So these are the three main parts that were included into the Bukignon management plan. The other one that we mentioned earlier, SUPA, component one, that we have just submitted in collaboration with DWR. And under this project, as you will see, so this is the Ramsar wetland, yes. So the project will focus in blue. This is the Mekong Peatlands project that will be assessed through the Mekong Peatlands in blue, and in red, the SUPA grant will focus on those peatlands in the red circle. So again, we just submitted this. Proposal, and we do hope to get support on it. Of course, the initial plan of the SUPA component one concept is to complement and support Mekong Peatland project. So it will be all done in collaboration and of course in close coordination with DWR. So the SUPA component that included the activities, the main focus, the three main focuses in the concept is on information, knowledge, and institutional capacity, including training, information exchange, surveys, and integrated assessment. The other one is strengthen integrated peatland management and stakeholder consultations, working also with the local governance, and demonstration and adoption of sustainable peatlands management practices. So this is also community consultations, community awareness. Just also to explain a bit more, the components are also mirroring the components of the Peatlands Mekong Peatland project. So as I'm almost moving closer to the end of the presentation, there's other points to consider, I think, that are important. It was mentioned earlier by DWR that the inventory, the wetland inventory, they are renewing it at the moment. The last wetland inventory in Laos was done in 1996, but however, there was no mention of peatlands at the time. And of course, peatlands should be integrated into the new wetland inventory, and I'm sure DWI is taking the lead on this. They will do that. And I mentioned that there are also other areas in Laos that can include the peatlands. So our morning discussion was mostly focused on Champasak province, but given that there's very little knowledge available about peatlands in Laos, so I think we should not only focus on Champasak, but also include the Vientiane province, Savannakhet, and potentially in Attapeu province. And given that this project development, we should consider more about it. And at the moment, there's very futile information available. And of course, the other thing that the wetland management should be integrated with the peatland management. If we're talking about launching and starting the work on peatland management. However, in Lao law, Ramsar wetlands are not legally mentioned in any decree, in any document. So even though Lao government is a party to Ramsar Convention, but there's no legal provisions for Ramsar Convention implementation in Lao documents. So Ramsar wetlands are not legally mentioned, but however, there's some infrastructure, meaning that there's a provincial and national level Ramsar committee which provide the framework and which provide the basis for this stakeholder consultations and for discussions and research. So I guess so for peatlands it would make sense to kind of adopt the scheme or maybe integrate it into the already existing scheme rather than create a new one, or maybe reinvent it and improve it. Because sometimes the Ramsar national level consultations, they are very high level and might not be very linked to the ground level. So this is all from our side, from IUCN Lao, Kapchai. And if any questions, please do let me know. I think I see already some questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natalia. That was really interesting to understand some of the threats that are facing the Bukit Nyong Ramsar site, especially with the cassava plantations. And I see, yeah, there are some questions already, which is great. So yeah, please continue to put your questions into the chat box, and then Dr. Natalia will get to them during the Q&A session in a bit. Awesome, thanks so much. So now over to our next presenter, who really needs not a lot of introduction within the ASEAN peatland community. That's Dr. Lê Phat Khoi. Dr. Khoi is a scientist at the Institute for Environment and Natural Resources at the Vietnam National University, Ho Chi Minh City. He's worked in the field of wetlands and peatlands in the Mekong River Basin with organizations such as WWF and IUCN for almost 20 years. Let's please welcome Dr. Lê Phat Khoi. Over to you.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you, Dominique, again. Okay. First of all, I would like to say many thanks to the Dr. Ali invited me to share some peatland in Laos. Here I will talk a little bit about the overview of the peatland in Laos, and also peatland and land cover, land use in peatland and rural strategy. All of the data I get when I joined the GCCBIT, and also IUCN Mekong Peatland Ecosystem Project activity a few years ago. Okay. Dr. Natalia mentioned about the peatland in Laos already. During the survey, we found the peatland were probably in many places from the north to the south. The area of peatland is not so large compared to other countries. to peatland in other countries in the region. And also the peatland, we use uh, different land use, depend in the local authorities. And also sustainable use of the peatland resources remain an issue. Dr. Natila mentioned already. That should be taken into the consideration. Here, just generally of the peatland we were found in the Laos. In the northern part of the Laos, we probably in the Ban Phon Han and Nong Savan. Yeah, some areas we didn't have time to go to the field to check. In the southern Laos, manage the site. In which Ban Công Ngong wetland is a area of peatland we call it. And when you look at the figure, peatland are forming most of the peatland we found in the in Laos, normally in the swamp surrounded by the high forest. Two types of peatland that are plotted bit soil and the bit soil. I mean the plotted bit marks in the Ban Công Ngong and also on other area. And the peatland rise from the 30 to more than 400 centimeter thickness in thickness. You look at figures. We did many society in Laos. Here in the Bang Phong Han in Vientiane, two big land here and also land cover. Normally they cover by the grass and many is a bit basic of that, and so the woodland, wood tree. You look the thickness of the peatland. That's a very more rather 3.56 meters, and the water in the peatland was used by local community, particularly in the rice season. And in the southern Laos, we at that time we found many sites. Yeah, in Namias, you look at Namias, the large peatland, but we exploited to mining for the organic fertilizer production already. You look, there are many people took, but still some by peatland and in that this side, but most of the people were exploited for the fertilizer production. And in Nong Ham Lo, yes, very nice big profile. You look a big, very big profile. Also, this covered by many species of vegetation. You look at this soil. And also we identified some small area of peatland we exploited for the to produce organic fertilizer. Dr. Natalia also mentioned already some areas we exploit. And here you look the peatland in the Nong Savan. Yes, it's still natural. Yeah, still natural with the grass and the beach profile on the left right side you can see. And in Ban Công Ngong, there are two types after the peatland level rotting beach mark and beach soil, very high biodiversity. And you look at rotting beach mark. I took this in my hand. I took 2 years ago when I researched right here. And here the I did a soil map include the peatland organic soil in the beach soil here, and also some area here, and here. There are some, yeah, and the land cover I did here. So in this area, there's a relationship between the beach soil and also the natural vegetation in this area. In Bangkok, vegetation covered predominantly by grass, shrub, and wood tree. You look the landscape. I took, yeah, and the people living in the Bangkok basin, normally the use of water resources and also fishery resources, and so vegetation for their livelihood. We also interview the local community needs. They need the water, fish, and also the vegetation for the livelihood. So very important. And working on bit matter also in Bangkok. Bangkok is Ramsar side, but some area of the Bangkok Peatland were exploited for fertilizer revolution also here. So now this become a fish pond, something like that. And here the Peatland in the Bangkok here I did few years ago, and here I consider the potential area of Peatland, but I didn't have time to go to this area to check. But I can see I can mention about the Peatland corridor. So we cannot protect the Peatland in Bangkok, but we have to protect the beach swamp surrounding, and we have to go to the field to check potential area of Peatland surrounding. It's a very useful the beach resources include water, fish, and vegetation, very useful for the local community for their livelihood. And summarize of the Peatland in the Laos, the natural resources possible in Bangkok and Ramsar side, and also natural state, like natural state. Many is a bit swamp in the north and also the southern Laos, still natural. So very important for the local authority to keep it, to protect it, because that supply the water, fish, and also the vegetation for the local community livelihood. Some area we can convert to the agricultural land already, but not many. And for the natural resources in the Peatland, first of all, water, fish, and vegetation. All the people, local people, local use natural resources and all other big swamp in Laos and peat mining. Many sides of the Peatland was mining, and the challenge of peatland management. I mean, the sustainable the peatland management land cannot approved. We 2 years ago we mentioned about National Action Plan of the peatland, but Lao, Cambodia, for my experience, Lao, Cambodia, Myanmar, and even Vietnam not approved the National Action Plan, and the appropriated water resources management in the this one is still have problem. Also the conflict between the economic and protection, natural conservation of the beach resources in Laos, yeah. And also, as I mentioned, potential area of peatland is not identified. So I believe that still some potential area of peatland in the southern part of Laos, and so some other area. And also, when we work in Laos, we identify that limited knowledge about the peatland resources, and also the so we need the capacity building, also the awareness enhancement for the central, also the local staff. Okay, many thanks. Thanks a lot. And also there's my colleagues where we did a survey in Laos. The money here, you can identify yourself here, the money, and we are here. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koi. That was a really interesting presentation. Looks like there's a lot of work still to be done as far as surveying, those potential peatland areas, as well as wanting to get, that sustainable management plan approved. So this again speaks to the experience that you've had in the region. So again, thank you for sharing. And now we get to go to the question and answer session. And it looks like already in the chat box, we've got a bunch going. So thank you so much. You can also raise your hand if you would like, but for now, let's read some questions. So we have a question earlier on, and this is for, I believe, Dr. Natalia. So this is from Connie Chang of the 3C Environmental Solutions of Thailand. So are there any parties driving efforts on policy revision so that wetlands management in Laos is broader to include peatlands? Dr. Natalia?
Yeah. So we have not yet we have not yet really addressed this issue yet. Everyone acknowledges it's a gap, and the DWR colleagues discussed this morning that they also had just started the Peatland Mekong Peatland project. So this will be definitely included, but I would say that it hasn't been properly kind of officially communicated yet to include it into the policy.
I see. Thank you. And then we have another question for you, Dr. Natalia. This is from Jo Ken Lee of People for Peat. Has water tables in the Ramsar sites reached a critical level where occurrences of fire are increasing?
Well, not that we were during our field missions, and the report not that we are aware of any fires already. There are fires mainly for the land clearance, but not fires of the dry peats. I don't know, Dr. Damani is based in the district. Dr. Damani, have you recently noticed anything on the fires, on peat fires?
Dr. Damani, are you here? Feel free to unmute yourself and yeah, have a discussion.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Natalia and Dr. Koi, for your presentation. That remind me about our field works on peatlands.
Yeah.
In 2015. Regarding to fire in the pit areas, I'm here at Bukit Ngong, so I did not observe the fire in the land area.
Yeah, the same information also that we have, it's not that degraded yet. So
that's a good thing. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. We have another question, and I think this could go to either one, but let's put this towards Dr. Koi. So this comes from Pyo Wai Kiao. Greetings from Myanmar, and thank you for the presentation. Could you please elaborate on the status of community participation in conserving peatlands in Laos?
No, I didn't get any. Although my I am not clear about the community participatory in the conservation of peatland in Laos. Maybe IUCN know about that, but I didn't.
Thanks, Dr. Koi. Over to you, Dr. Natalia, if you have any thoughts about that or have seen some community participation on your end.
The community participation, sorry, can you repeat that? Community participation?
So the question was, can you elaborate on the status of community participation in conserving peatlands in Laos?
So we have community patrolling initiative and then also community monitoring initiative for the wetlands. We have designed together with Dr. Damani, is very well also been involved, and on the PFW project, we have designed this guidelines for community patrolling, for community ecosystem monitoring. I believe peatlands is also kind of included there, but partly on the core zone.
Not specifically on peatlands, but just any wetland types.
Yeah, it's our Peter Breckels is our biodiversity advisor also. Like he's a field also. answering some questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And this is funny enough as a question from Peter, which I assume is to Dr. Koi. How about the potential peatland areas in Attapuri province and Khammouan province mentioned by DWR?
Yeah, that came up during the first session in the morning at the COP that I forgot the name of this Mr. from the DWR. He mentioned that there's potentially large areas of peatland in Attapur.
Yes.
But I don't know if anyone has been there or not.
Yeah. We went to Attapur a few years ago to identify some small beach farm there, and not only in the Attapur but also in the Savannah Cat. Yeah, Savannah Cat also there's some small beach farm, but at that time we didn't have time and fun to go around it or the whole area. But based on the satellite image, I can identify some potential area of peatland. So I hope that Mekong Peatland project can continue to do the survey to map the peatland.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to write it into the project to include this survey area.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your question, Peter. We have another question from Bonchan from WWF Lao, and this is for Dr. Natalia. So for the invasive species that you mentioned in BKN, is that specifically plant or animals, or are they both?
So the main threat for Bukignon at the moment is the golden apple snail. It's abundant and highly impacting the wetland, but lately, actually on a community report that we've heard, because the golden apple snail is also used quite a lot in local cuisine, so the population has decreased, and it actually would be good to assess whether it's such abundance as previously mentioned. The plant invasive species are water hyacinth and Mimosa pigra. They at the point when we did the system assessment, the populations, the habitus was not too large of this plant, but they have a very high capacity to expand very quickly. So, and it's also very hard to control once it's expanded. Also, again, pointing back to Dr. Damani, maybe she could also, because we talked about this with Dr. Damani about the golden apple snail that it has reduced. Dr. Damani.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Natalia. Yes, I agree with your point, as you mentioned that the golden apple snail is recently has been, I think, is under control, because when we first visit the communities, and then they claim that the golden apple snail is kind of invasive species, and then we introduced to them that for example, in the city or in other areas, they also they eat golden apple snail. It's widely eat as a cuisine, as Dr. Natalia mentioned. So then the community, they try to collect and sell to the market. So it's very good in terms of economic opportunity for golden apple snail. So it's currently, I think it's under control. And also Mimosa pigra. We just employ the traditional techniques to remove that plants. But I think its generation still exists, and then we continue to remove regularly. So I think maybe we can find another best practice in terms of removing the Mimosa pigra. So then maybe that best practice can share in the Bukit Ramsar site.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Domi. That's a kind of a win-win situation when you can get rid of an invasive species and provide economic opportunity, isn't it? That's great. Okay, so we have another question coming in from Dr. Lee Jo-Kian, and he asks Dr. Koi, has there been any plans to protect or improve the connectivity between BKN's peatland fragments? That's his first question. And his second question is, are there any efforts to deter illegal activities at BKN?
No, This question should be as Natalia and Dominic. I don't know.
Yeah, over
I
to
think,
Dr. Natalia.
Yeah, Natalia. I think Dr. Natalia can answer.
Yeah, sure. So for the activities to establish conservation corridors, it's a good idea actually, and we should definitely consider it. I think within the framework of the projects, and because as I mentioned, the information and the efforts have been so relatively scarce, and I would say that this is the first just peatlands project that focus only on peatlands conservation and management. So this I think is a good idea. And then in terms of community efforts for the conservation, yes, we as I mentioned, we designed this guidelines and we launched trainings for ecosystem monitoring and patrolling. With the local rangers and the local communities. However, the challenge here, as I mentioned, is that first of all is of course the low capacity, because the wetland is not the protected area. It is not recognized as protected area. Thus, there's less importance given by the local government, and there's less mandate. So those rangers might not have the mandate to stop those illegal activities. However, I think that this co-management concept with involving communities for patrolling is a very good one, because those communities are basically the ones who are residing there, and they're the ones who are doing the poaching and the encroachment. So hopefully it will be overcome. And yeah, so we have already started the monitoring with the communities. Patrolling, the plan was to start it after finishing the land use plans. As Dr. Dominic said, they have just finished it. So so we're about to launch it very soon under the KFW project, but it will be only in the Ramsar site. So it's not beyond.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for that response.
Okay, I have some idea. The big problem for Ramsar site in Bangkok Ramsar site, that the boundary is not so clear.
Yeah.
The boundary is not so clear. So also the agricultural land inside the Ramsar site. When I work there, I also talk about that to the IUCN and also the local provincial, the provincial government about that. We have to check to remap of the boundary of the Ramsar site, because not Ramsar site but agriculture and inside the Ramsar site, and the boundary of the Ramsar site also the peatland is not so clear. So many people, local people living around it, go inside easy go inside the Ramsar site to work. How to control that? Very difficult to control the local people for illegal activity. Not only in the Bangkok, but also in the Sesambon Ramsar site, the same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That is a challenging thing to have. I'm going to go to some of actually the comments in our chat box, because it's quite interesting, the discussion that happens to be going on there, and I'd like to get your feedback on that. So this comes a comment from Bunchan of WWF Lao. So taking into account of cassava presence and the expansion around BKN, is it surprising that BKN has a low level of pollution effect from the chemical fertilizer application in cassava plantations? I wonder what you both think about that.
Yeah, I already replied to that. I mean, the expansion of cassava, I mean, is relatively new. It's only started a few years ago, and it's only really taking off now since it has been announced that they're going to build a tapioca factory. Or specifically last year, there was vast areas of habitat has been cleared to grow cassava in and around the wetland. And yeah, I mean, the impact of pollution at this point is not yet known. There's only a few areas that have been rotated these cassava for 1 or 2 years. So, but yeah, this is still to be investigated. Yeah, this is all really new arrival of cassava in in this area.
Interesting.
Yeah.
May I share some points on the peatland, the connection between peatland and BK and Ramsar site. Actually, if you observe through the map that presented by Dr. Khoi, parts of peatlands in BK and Ramsar site, it has already been there. So far we has developed the second draft, not final draft of the second time 5-year plans for wetland management. BK and Ramsar site wetland management that also included the peatland management inside the wetland management plan. That one, and also in terms of illegal activities. Yes, as Peter mentioned that it has recently expanded for the cassava plantation, and then the local government take very serious action on this illegal. So then they have some very serious action, and also with support from the MRWP and the KFW, we also support the local communities to replant some trees at the area that has been encroached for cassava expansion. And also BCC project supported by ADB, they also now currently implementing the replanting in the area that has been encroached by the local communities. Two sectors, they are now working together in terms of law enforcement and also the support to replant in the area. And then a person who encroached has to take care the plantation area until 3 years, and then they have to send back that encroachment area to the government. Yes, this action has been taken in the areas.
That's great news, and good to hear that's like some collaborative work going on on the ground there. Thank you so much, Dr.
Yes.
Jomini. Okay, we have another question. Sorry, Peter, your hand is still up. Do you have another comment?
Yeah, maybe we would like to add, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of the BCC project. So this was the project before the MRWP project started. I think they finished 2018 or 2019. There were a lot of conservation efforts already in this area, and they established a biodiversity conservation corridor area, like formally by the district signed off. This in between Sepian MPA and Dong Hoa Sao MPA, to connect both MPAs as a conservation corridor. So in between we have the Ramsar site, the Patimpon wetlands. So this was community participation, community-based conservation, all agreements on which areas to conserve. And when the project finished, unfortunately, people started to clear the designated conservation areas and to grow cassava. And now they are trying to enforce the law, exactly as Dominique said. But there's been a lot of conservation efforts previously in this area, and it's very hard apparently.
Yeah, it definitely sounds very challenging.
Some setbacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that comment, Peter.
Yep.
Going over to our questions, we still have a couple more. So this comes from Piu Piu San of Myanmar. And so her question is, how is the business development for local communities? To my understanding, the area is in government control. So what are the potential local business interventions, and how does it cover in the management plan for peatlands? Either Dr. Khoi or Dr. Natalia, feel free to take this question. No.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's no management plan for peatland. There's a management plan for wetland. So the business development plan for local communities, I would say, first of all, the business opportunities in the wetland are very low. I think under MRWP, we were considering developing ecotourism communities, but ecotourism business, but it's also the potential is very low. Capacity is very low, and I think we even decided not to focus on this component anymore. In terms of potential for like alternative livelihoods and some like local business development, I think maybe Dr. Damani would be able to expand, to elaborate a bit more, because they're doing it under their work with the local communities. But there's very there is, I think there's, for example, just for an example, there's one resort, the Eco Lodge in next to Bukignon wetland, and it's really struggling with to get the tourists and to survive. So I'd say that unfortunately the development opportunities are very low in Laos. Kind of it's historically developed like this. And it has to be, yeah, it has to be, I think it's a big avenue for growth and development. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Natalia. Over to you, Dominique.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Natalia. I would like to add, I just recall the points that Dr. Khoi raised about the encroachment in the Binki and Ramsar site, that there's no clear area, right? Clear identify the boundary, right? But so far, up to now, we has been finished the land use planning in 8 core villages that has already categorized the land use type in each villages. And also the map of BKN has been updated. So now we has very clear boundary of the BKN Ramsar site, and the pole has been already installed. The boundary of BKN has been now clear identified. In terms of livelihoods development target to Peatland, I can say that there's still no any action because the project has been prepared and will start soon. But in terms of livelihoods development in the BKN Ramsar site, yes, we has made some numbers of efforts. Like we developed the village development plan for 8 villages that surrounded BKN Ramsar site. And then we now started to promote. We try to identify the potential in terms of human resources and natural resources. Human resources, we refer to their talented, their skills, and their wisdom. And then we try to incorporate the expertise outside to help, to support the communities to develop their products. Now we started for the handicraft development in one village because they have their skill to produce handicraft products, and then they have their resource pool beside their villages. So it's very good opportunity for us to support them in collaboration with the Lao Handicraft Association. So this has very good success full story. We has been started in June this year, and we just finished take the how to say the communities to illustrate, to demonstrate their products development in the national exhibition event. The Lao Handicraft event is annually. So, and also in collaborate with the faculty of architecture, we also send the product design for competition, and we won the first and second prize in the event. So now this business is going very well, but there are some challenges that we need to develop the market system in order to link the community to the market. So then they can be how to say the marketing. They can do the marketing by themselves, and we also identify the characteristic of the resources in order to develop the community regulation to manage and use the resources in a sustainable way. And another activities, we also promotion the cattle fattening, because in that area they have quite large number of cattle, and then they grazing freely. It affects the ecological conservation zone and also other biodiversity that they rely on the buffer zone. And we try to, how to say, bring that livestock grazing into the system. We in collaborate with the Lao Quality Beef Initiative supported by New Zealand government to set some how to say manageable cattle fattening. We started this program in August, and now it's become the rotation. So we can see that this system also work well in terms of livestock management, and the challenge is also marketing also. And another villages that they also has in terms of cassava expansion, we identify that they have some potential for mulberry plantation for silk production and weaving. We start this program in May, and now already started the worm raising, and by mid of this month we will have silk, and then we will promote the weaving. we try to identify the activities, livelihood activities that can draw away local communities from the forest and natural resource extraction, and also increase the value of natural resources. In this system, another way we can, create some community-based learning and tourism along with the ecotourism promotion. In this system, we can also, allow the natural system to regeneration or to rehabilitate. And at some time, maybe we can have two types of tourism: community-based learning and tourism along with the ecotourism. This is our project is working now under the KFW support project. Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's a lot of good news to come out of that region, especially in terms of those alternative livelihoods. So that's great. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, we've got just a couple more questions left. Let's see. This comes from Jerome Montemayor of the Philippines. So his question is and this is a hard word to pronounce, so bear with me. Is schistosomiasis also a concern in Lao peatlands and wetlands? So I believe this is like a parasite, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can not that we heard of. We just did community assessments like for non-timber forest projects evaluation in Seshampon wetland, and we did community consultations there, and we there's a big consumption of golden apple snail there, and not that we heard of this at the moment. Luckily, I haven't heard of it. Yeah, that's
yeah. Good news.
Yeah.
Great. So another question, and I think this is probably one of our last questions. It is from the DWR of Lao, and this is to the IUCN. Is there any plan to study or research regards to the impact from changing of the groundwater level to peatland areas?
I actually not really. There's a plan to study research the groundwater level, because it should be like a proper hydrology analysis. In not in Bukidnon. I know that for example WCS is planning to do that in Seshampon. But it's not in Peatland area. But not that we are planning this. But if there's a need, we can discuss this further for the groundwater assessment.
They're monitoring the water levels under the community monitoring.
Yeah. We'll also, as Peter is also saying that there's we do within this program for the community ecosystem monitoring, there is a water level monitoring, but not the groundwater assessment.
Do the ground level as well. I think Dongmani has not more background information on the monitoring.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Under the MRWP project supported by KFW, we also have like a routine monitoring that we monitor the groundwater, surface water, and rainwater. This is we conducted monthly, started from 2018, and we still doing now. So we had some data and information in terms of groundwater, surface, and rainwater. But so far, we still has not linked to the peatland management. Maybe if there's some research, we can share this data, and then we can have another additional data on peatland, and then we can see the link between the groundwater change and also peatland. Yes.
That would be great. Lots of potential then. Okay, we've got one more question coming in from Dr. Lee Jo Ken. And so he's saying that this morning's presentation brought up Laos plans to build an additional 339 in the near future, hydro dams in the near future, with some of these being in areas where peatlands are. So peatland hydrology is expected to be impacted. Is there any mitigation plan in place to any of your knowledge? We have heard that EIAs have been conducted for the approved projects and are available, but haven't had the chance to read them yet.
Well, first of all, the hydropower dams construction is a very sensitive topic to discuss with the government.
Yes.
Secondly, yeah, we and INGOs or IUCN, we're not always consulted, and these EIAs, they're not always available. They are for some, like there's some, I know that there are some like consultations kind of behind the closed doors in a way, but yeah, for the hydropower dams, I'm not even sure what's available, and if it is, I don't think it's openly available, and I think if it is available, it is in Lao. I don't think it is translated also, so it's a bit, yeah, it's a bit well, hard issue to tackle.
Understandable, and thank you for sharing. And of course, you know, there are certain things that it's a bit more difficult to discuss. So thank you very much. We have a hand raised from Connie Chang of 3C Environmental, and that's from Thailand. Connie, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Mariam. Yeah, I just find it easier to just
understandable.
My question. So now that we've been shared a lot of really good information about the need for improved capacity and baseline assessments on peatlands in Laos, and we also heard some from Duong Mani, some very good initiatives that have started specifically for the livelihoods. So my question is generally to all the parties that are based in Laos right now, and the question is, what are your outlooks on the sustainability of all of these 3-4 projects that Natalia had earlier mentioned, because some of them are ending this year and another couple of years, and despite maybe initiating some good capacity building or technological capacity building activities, livelihood things, what's your outlook on how all of your efforts can and will be sustained for the next, let's say, decade throughout Laos, especially given the kinds of economic development that Laos is currently facing? Thank you very much.
Yeah, who do you want to reply? Yeah, I can go ahead. Well, first of all, the IUCN Lao has been present here since I think 1992, I think, or 93. So IUCN Lao has always been here, either a big or small program. It's like a natural process of like a cycle, but we have always been there. So IUCN Lao ensures this sustainability, and IUCN was the one standing behind the designation of the Ramsar wetlands in Laos. So we're kind of like Ramsar, and we have been in Bukidnon since establishment, either this way or the other, like through the as a consultants. Also our role in Laos is that we are advisors to the Ramsar Convention. So this is how we kind of, there's some sustainability in that. But for example, as Dr. Daumani was mentioned, now this, for example, KFW project is mainly run through Champasak province based in Ponre. And through this project, there is a capacity development, and there's some sort of sustainability through the acquired knowledge and skills developed. The question is whether, of course, anything will be continued after, and it's very much also up to the government to continue, but also it's our role as IUCN here to monitor the status of wetlands and to advise to the government. Yeah, I think the question, the fact is that the government is running the projects themselves, and they implement, and Dr. Daumani has just shared the good examples that they did. So this is, in terms of this capacity of the government to manage it and to run it, has increased. The question is, of course, with the funding resources after, what will happen with all this cow fattening and like business development plans after the project is over. It's yeah, because I don't think the government will have allocated funds for this. Yeah, especially given with the pandemic and all the country's economy at the moment, and like everywhere in the region, it's just like the budget, the national budgets are shrinking. So.
Thank you, Dr. Natalia. Dr. Dumani, any comments there from you?
Thank you. Actually, it is very good question. When the how to say the high leader, when they visited Bingket Ngong, visited our project site, also raised this question in terms of sustainability after the project finish. So this is a key, or how to say, is a very important homework for our project. So we have to find some method, some kind of mechanism to achieve this. I also would like to learn from our expert in this meeting. So please feel free to share. I welcome any lesson learned or good practice from your countries. So maybe I can share this and adopt that in the area that I'm working now. So first of all, I think the efforts to manage and to protect the area, especially the Ramsar site, we have to continue because we have the commitment under the Ramsar site. This is the government commitment. Everybody, every people of Lao commitment. So we have to continue this effort to be implemented. The project, or try to seek for another support to continue implement the project. And another issue, we have started some initiative in terms of livelihood developments that we have identified the community potential already. So they have they're talented, their skill. The skill it's belong to them. So we try to build and how to say to build that skill, to building that capacity, to how to say to build that skill. And the key challenges I mentioned is the market. So we try to develop, we try to link the community to the market, and then we try to facilitate them, to link them to the market when they produce their products, and then they know the way to control the quality, to control the criteria, and then they can supply to the market. We try to develop this mechanism in order to how to say to make them stand by their own leg. So this is our efforts, and we hope that for 2 years that we still have time. So we will try hard to work on this, and we also think about the future. Maybe we can find some another financial support to continue this mechanism, because we think that we come to the right way in terms of the conservation area. We try to develop, try to identify the livelihood issues that has very impact in terms of natural resources, and it increase the natural resources. It accumulate the skill, the lesson learned in the community. So we think that this system need to be continue and try to build the capacity for this system. Yes.
Thanks very much for that comment, Dr. Dumani. Dr. Koi, anything else to add?
No.
No. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. This has been really a really lively discussion, and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to shortly hand over. But yeah, again, thank you so much for everyone's insightful comments and questions. And a huge thank you to our presenters, Dr. Natalia and Dr. Koi, as well as our surprise presenter, Dr. Dumani, as well as Peter, for their comments and their insight that they've shared with us today. And I'd like to hand it over back to our host, Tommy, to close us out for the day. Tommy, over to you.
Thank you, Mariam. Indeed, it's been quite a lively discussion we had today. Thank you for all the presenters and feedbacks from the participants of this webinar. And really appreciate the information that we received from this today's session. So we had the COP in the morning, and now we even get more insights from the Lao stakeholders in this afternoon session. So yes, hopefully, we'll be having another opportunity to have a further discussions with the stakeholders. And of course, if the situation permits, there will be also hopefully not only a virtual meetings, but the physical meetings to discuss more about the situation in Laos. So for your information, Super Component 2 will still have another round for webinar. So we'll have a webinar for Cambodia this month. So please follow our social media for further information about this event. And by this, yeah, I thank you again for all the insightful informations that is provided in these sessions. And please do not forget to follow our social media. Mariam, if you could also share our social media to the participants for further information about SUPA Component 2 activities. Okay, appreciate for all the presenters and participants who make the time for joining these sessions, and we'll see you soon for the next webinar this month for Cambodia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.